Somebody please help! My mother is drowning!
Little Adana screamed with all her strength from the riverbank as she watched her mother struggle to stay afloat in the river. Her mother could swim, but the torrents of rain and the stormy weather threw her further into the river whenever she was close to safety. Adana couldn't stand the sight anymore. She was crying, wailing, and screaming as her mother bobbed in and out of the river, drowning before her eyes. Earlier that day, the river had been gentle, its surface shining like smooth glass under the rising sun. Birds called from the treetops, and the scent of wet soil mixed with ripe mangoes filled the air. It was the last day of the festival of the river goddess, and 12-year-old Adana sat quietly in the canoe, her feet tucked beneath her wrapper. Her mother, Mama Ada, paddled carefully beside her, humming a soft song that only mothers know, the kind that speaks to the soul more than the ears. The boat was heavy with offerings, fresh yams, dyed cloth, beads, and 2 fat white chickens tied by the legs. Everything had to be perfect. This year, Mama Ada had promised the goddess the best of what they had. For protection, for peace, for long life, she had said. Adana didn't understand all of it, but she loved these trips, just her and Mama, floating through green tunnels of trees, watching turtles plop into the water and dragonflies dance like tiny spirits above the river. Soon, you'll do this without me, Mama said, eyes soft. One day, the river will be yours to walk, like I walked it with my mother. Adana laughed. Then you must teach me how to swim first. They both chuckled, and for a moment, the world felt light. The river, the canoe, the love between them. It all felt untouchable. But then the wind changed. It came like a whisper at first, a breeze that pulled at Adana's scarf and tickled her ears. Then a sudden gust knocked one of the chickens over, making it squawk. Mama's eyes flicked up. Her humming stopped. Clouds, thick and gray, began to roll over the sky like marching soldiers. The birds in the trees fluttered away, as if running away for cover. Mama, Adana said, help me move the baskets to the center. Quickly. The wind roared louder. The trees bowed, tossing from side to side in the wind. Waves slapped the canoe's side with growing anger. Lightning tore through the sky. A moment later, thunder cracked like the sky itself had broken open. Then the rain fell. Not in drops. In buckets. In fists. The kind of rain that makes you believe the heavens are punishing the earth. Hold on. Mama shouted, throwing her weight against the canoe as it rocked dangerously. But the river had already turned wild. It surged beneath them, the current angry, fast, alive. A wave hit. The canoe tipped. Offerings spilled into the water, yams, beads, cloth, all snatched by the river as if the goddess herself had rejected the gifts. Then, the canoe flipped. In a flash, Adana was underwater. Everything was cold, loud, and blurry. The river twisted her around like a rag doll. She couldn't tell up from down. Panic gripped her chest. Her arms flailed, searching, grasping. Then, a hand. Mama's hand, strong and sure, pulling her to the surface. Adana gasped for air, coughing. The rain still poured, the waves still crashed. But Mama held her close, eyes wild with fear. Swim, Adana. To the bank. Now. But Mama. I said go. Mama pushed her with all her strength, shoving her toward land. Adana kicked and paddled, choking on river water, reaching for vines and roots near the edge. Her fingers caught onto something firm, and she pulled herself out, collapsing onto the muddy bank. She turned around just in time to see her mother's head disappear beneath the water. Mama! Nothing. The river had swallowed her. Adana screamed until her voice cracked. She ran along the bank, calling, crying, tripping, shouting, begging. Mama! Somebody help! Mama! But there was only the sound of rain, the rush of the river, and her own breaking heart. She stayed by the river for 3 days, crying, screaming, calling for her mother with nobody to respond. The rain stopped, the sun returned, and still she stayed, her dress torn, her hair knotted, her voice hoarse. She prayed. She lit a tiny fire with wet sticks and whispered the songs her mother used to teach her. River goddess, I am your child. Please, grant my request. I am your humble servant. Then, out of frustration, she shouted, Is this your idea of protection? Is this your blessing? What kind of goddess takes the kind and abandons the helpless? But there was no answer, only the steady gurgle of the water, as if the river was laughing. On the fourth morning, a group of searchers from the village came. They found Adana curled near the roots of an old tree, her eyes hollow, her lips cracked. They brought her home, wrapped her in cloth, and gave her hot pepper soup. But she didn't cry anymore. At the burial rite, they held a jar of river water to represent Mama Ada's spirit. Elders poured libations. Women wailed. The priestess sang a slow, painful hymn to guide the lost soul. But Adana stayed silent. When it was her turn to speak, she stepped forward, looked at the altar of the river goddess, and said clearly, If the gods let their worshippers drown, they deserve no worship. Let it be known this day that I, Adana, curse the gods. In fact, I deny their existence. Gasps filled the air. One elder dropped her staff. Someone whispered, The child is mad with grief. But Adana didn't blink. She turned her back on the shrine and walked out of the compound. From that day on, she never bowed before any altar again. She grew up with fire in her eyes and silence in her prayers. People pitied her, but some feared her. They said her heart had turned to stone. But Adana knew the truth. It wasn't her heart that hardened. It was her faith. The gods had broken it. And now, she would live without them. Adana never returned to the river. She built her life as far from the water as her feet could carry her. She settled near an old shea grove, where the soil was stubborn and the wind dry, but at least the gods were silent. Or so she thought. By the time she was 23, Adana had become a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She grew the biggest yam tubers in the village, cassava that snapped like dry bone, and peppers that bit the tongue like anger. She wore her hair short and always tied with a plain black scarf, as if mourning had become her second skin. When the priestesses passed through her compound, collecting offerings for the gods, Adana gave them nothing. May the river goddess bless your womb, they would say sweetly. Adana's reply was always the same. Tell her to bless someone else. I owe her nothing. People whispered behind her back. But Adana was not afraid of whispers. She was afraid of believing in the gods again. Her faith in them had failed her once, and she would never let it fool her twice. She met Ikan, the man she would later marry, at the village market. He was tall, with a calm face and eyes that looked like they had seen grief too, but refused to be buried by it. He was not rich, not loud, not eager to impress. He simply stood by the yam stall, waiting for a fair price. You picked a bad time to buy yams, Adana told him as he examined one. He looked up, smiling. Or maybe a good time to meet someone interesting. She had expected him to turn away after hearing her name. Most men did. But Ikan kept returning. He helped her carry baskets. He laughed at her dry jokes. He spoke softly, like the sound of night wind through raffia leaves. After a year, he asked her to marry him. She said yes, but on one condition. I will not kneel before any god. If that's a problem, I can't marry you. She stated. Ikan had hesitated for a long time before nodding. I believe in them, he said. But I won't force your knees. Only your heart, maybe. Their wedding was a silent affair with no animal sacrifices or offerings to the gods. Some villagers shook their heads. No wine poured to the ancestors? No blessings from the priestess, they whispered. This woman is cursed, I swear it. But Ikan didn't care. He loved her strength, her silence, her resilience. Married life was strange at first. Ikan kept a small wooden shrine at the back of their hut, decorated with white stones and feathers, where he prayed for them both. But Adana never joined him. Every morning, he knelt, lit a small flame, and murmured prayers. Adana walked past him with a basket of yam tubers. You're still asking for help from people who don't answer, she said one morning. Ikan looked up with calm eyes. Just because you didn't hear them, doesn't mean they were silent. She rolled her eyes. Tell that to my mother's bones. Once, he asked gently, even if you hate the river goddess, can't you kneel for the harvest god? Or thank the sky god for rain? She didn't answer, and after some time, he stopped asking. 2 years passed and no child came. Adana didn't cry, not once. But her neighbors did the crying for her. She has so much wealth but no heir, they murmured. A tree with no fruit. What's the use? Others were bolder. They said she insulted the gods in public. Now her womb is sealed with their anger. Ikan wanted children, but Adana never seemed to worry. Still, month after month, her belly remained flat. Her back ached with labor, her arms grew strong from lifting baskets, but her womb stayed dry and empty. Ikan grew quiet. He didn't blame her, not openly, but Adana saw it in his silences. One night, he reached for her hand in bed and asked, "What if you just visited the shrine once? You don't need to pray, just be present." Adana pulled away. "I'd rather beg the wind," she said. "But you knew who I was before you said I do," she snapped. "Don't look for a river in the desert." What Adana didn't know was that the gods had noticed her defiance. In the celestial court beyond the stars, they spoke of her often. The river goddess still burned with bitterness. "She curses my name for her mother's death even though it was her appointed time," she hissed, her voice like crashing waves. "Let her womb dry up like cracked clay." The sun god crossed his arms. "She is indeed a prideful woman. Let her remain barren until she learns humility." But not all gods agreed. The moon god, silver-skinned and soft-eyed, watched Adana with quiet sadness. "She was a child," he whispered. "A girl whose mother drowned while crying my sister's name." "She spat on our names," thundered the sun god. "She cried for days," the moon god replied, louder than usual. "And no one came. Not even you, sun brother." There was silence. Even the stars paused. Finally, the river goddess turned away. Let her rot in her pride. But the moon god was already thinking of how to show Adana that not all the gods hated her. Back in the mortal world, Adana sat with her husband beneath a shade tree one night, relaxing in the cool night's breeze. She did not hope or pray for a miracle. She simply stared up at the moon, feeling a quiet ache she had not felt since childhood. That night, she whispered, not to the gods, but to her husband, "I didn't choose to be like this. I don't deserve to be barren." The bright moon heard her but said nothing. The next evening, just after sunset, Adana picked up a strange scent in her nose. It was sweet, warm, and familiar. She walked outside and found that the old shade tree in their compound, one that hadn't fruited in years, was covered in soft, glowing pods. She frowned. That's not normal. A cold breeze swept through the compound. Ikan came outside too, rubbing his eyes. "What's that smell?" Adana didn't answer. She was staring at the pods as they pulsed like something alive. The shade tree had stood in her backyard for years, bare and fruitless. The villagers said it was dying. But now the old tree shimmered under the rays of moonlight, glowing as if the stars had poured silver into its roots. Each pod on the branches was soft and round, with a creamy light spilling through tiny cracks in the shell. And the scent, sweet like roasted coconut, warm like fresh bread, filled the air. Ikan stepped forward. "Did you do something to the soil?" Adana shook her head slowly. "No, this isn't me." She reached up and touched one of the glowing pods. It was warm. It throbbed gently, like a heartbeat. And then the pod cracked and split open. A golden white mist curled out from inside the pod, wrapping around Adana's fingers like silk. She stumbled back. "What in the name of—" Ikan began. But Adana was no longer listening. A soft hum filled the air, like music only the soul could hear. The other pods began to sway gently, even though the wind was still. And then, before their very eyes, something began to take shape on the ground. It started as a small puddle of golden shea butter. It shimmered, pulsed, and then rose, slowly, gently, like wax melting in reverse. Arms formed, then legs, then a tiny round face. And then the light faded. Adana gasped. Lying in the grass was a baby girl. Not wrapped in cloth, not slick with blood, but perfect, clean. Her skin shimmered faintly like the moon on water. Her soft eyes blinked once and settled on Adana. Ikan dropped to his knees. Is this? But Adana already knew. She didn't ask how. She didn't care if it made sense. She picked the baby up and pressed her against her chest. The child felt warm and light, like holding a sunbeam made of butter. For the first time in years, tears rolled freely down Adana's cheeks. She whispered into the child's ear, Amara. Your name is Amara because you are a symbol of grace. That night, the moon god appeared to Adana in a vision. He appeared above the village, hidden behind silver clouds. He spoke softly, I cannot break the god's decree to keep you barren, but I can shape a gift from what they overlooked. The child you now have is not born of flesh, not touched by a womb, not blessed by the sun god or the river goddess. She is a loophole, a creature I made from moonlight and sacred shea, neither fully spirit nor fully human. She is yours to raise as you wish, but there is only one rule. She must never face the sun. The day she faces the sun, she will surely melt away. The next day, Adana sat beside Amara's sleeping form, staring at her daughter as though afraid she might disappear. Ikan paced the room as Adana narrated her vision to him. We need to tell someone, he said. At least a priest. This is divine. Adana looked up sharply. No, but what if the gods? She's mine, Adana snapped. They've taken enough from me. They won't take her. We only need to ensure the sun never touches her skin. Ikan sighed. Adana, the sun is rising. We need to move her. They placed Amara in a clay basket lined with palm leaves and tucked her deep inside the hut, far from the windows. They covered the shutters with thick cloth to ensure that no light entered. And every night, under the soft blue moon, Adana bathed her in warm water and rubbed her body with fresh oil. Amara glowed faintly in the dark, humming softly in her sleep. She never cried or coughed. She never ate any food. All she needed was the moon. Years passed, and Amara grew, but not like normal children. By the time she was 5, she looked no older than 3. Delicate, small, always glowing faintly in the dark. She had soft curls like melted gold, and skin that smelled faintly of roasted nuts. Her laughter was musical. Her silence, strange. She never went outside during the day, not once. By day, she stayed inside the hut or the shaded storage room beside it. By night, she walked around the compound, chasing moths and playing with Binta, her pet dog. She'd giggle as she watched her shadow stretch under the moon. And when the full moon came, she danced with her dog and Kofi, the only human friend her parents allowed her to have. She danced without music, without steps, just wild spinning, arms lifted to the sky, feet barely touching the ground. Adana watched from the window, her heart torn between wonder and fear. Ikan, too, grew quiet. One night, as they lay in bed, he asked, "What will happen when she starts to ask why she's different?" Adana didn't answer because she had already seen it in Amara's eyes. The questions were coming, and far above them, in the court of the gods, the moon god watched in silence. The river goddess scoffed. "You think this will make her humble?" The sun god smirked. "She hasn't changed, and she will never change." The moon god said nothing. He simply motioned to the others to keep calm and observe. The future had not been decided yet. One day, Amara sat by the window, her tiny fingers pressed against the thick cloth that covered the shutters. She could see slivers of light slip through the gaps, golden and sharp, but always out of reach. She felt the warmth that radiated through the cloth and wondered what it was like to go out during the day.